I'm Max Beasley, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
This is Andrew Berkeley, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
Hey, this is Level Up Leroy, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
Get yourself ready for an interdimensional sensory experience. Welcome all to the dimension of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. This is the 5D Podcast.
Hello there and welcome to the 5D Podcast, brought to you by Stuart and Zach from 5D-blog.com. Welcome to those of you listening live on Twitch. Also, welcome to those of you listening on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn and Stitcher. Be sure to check out the 5D-blog.com website for blog articles, competitions and news. And of course, check out the 5D YouTube channel, the details for which can be found on the 5D website.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. I'm very good actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's sun shining today. I'm feeling good. We're not going to have it's not going to be a normal episode today. We're not going to have any news.
Please
We're
tell
not
me
going to
why.
talk about shit. Actually, I shall tell you why. Because we have got a interview coming up with an actor, a writer, a D&D enthusiast.
So before we get into this, you're telling me that we don't have time right now to go over any news because we've got a jam-packed episode with a special guest. So there's no time for me to come out and say how the Fast and Furious 9 director says that this is going to be the best of the whole franchise. There's no time to talk about anything like that, no? You
never told me. You said to me before we did this, right? You said to me, right, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to talk about what's going on. And then now you're going to stick this in. I'm sorry, that's just underhand. Considering that the interview that we're going to have next is actually, or it has actually already taken place. Mm-hmm. It took place last night without you.
It did.
Because of circumstances that meant that you couldn't be.
Circumstances, but I've seen the interview, and my gosh, what a lad.
He's great, isn't it? We're going to be talking with Todd Stashwick, familiar face. People will know exactly who he is. He's been in, the Monkeys, 12 Monkeys, the originals, the Riches, Gotham, Heroes, Supernatural. Tons of stuff. It's heavily into the D&D scene. Is a bona fide nerd. Did you see his background?
I did.
In his
it was quite impressive, actually.
Very
impressive. Do you know what was funny? So you're sat there. You've got your. I'm just looking at you, Doctor Who. You got your Batman stickers. You've got all your fancy stuff around you.
I had my Groot cup that you bought me.
Yeah. Todd's background was just like insane. All the coolest stuff. I'm so glad I wasn't there because my background is an absolute joke in comparison. I've just got plain white walls of a random bedroom in my house.
You look as if you're in like solitary in, I know your house, and your house is a lovely house, but the room is very bare because obviously you're not using it for anything except work and stuff. So you haven't been talking to out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and doing all that. So yeah, I talked with Todd last night, and he's great. I
feel like if we was there full three-way, I reckon we could have talked all night with that dude.
Honest to God,
he was so happy just to.
He was great, wasn't he? And he was really interesting and funny. And I messaged him afterwards, and I said thanks very much for it. He returned back saying it was a real hoot, which I kind of take the subtext to probably mean it's probably the best experience that he's ever had. Yeah,
I mean, it makes complete sense to me.
Totally. So, shall we play the interview with Todd and let's do it? We'll be back to normal next week.
Indeed.
How did it start? I mean, I know you probably get asked this a lot, but I'm always interested in where this comes from for yourself. I mean, was it something that you always wanted to do, or did you fall into it? How did it start off?
Well, so the abbreviated version is I was a loud kid and saw that I got a lot of response when I would do silly voices and imitate Elvis for mom, and And I also was deeply moved at a very young age by the power of entertainment. At 8 years old, watching Star Wars, like just the power of entertainment combined with the fact that I was a loud kid. And then much of my formative years was spent pretending, playing Star Wars, playing D&D, playing Star Trek action figures. Like, so much of my youth was spent doing this thing that they now pay me for. But there was a good span of high school where I was doing theater, but I was also doing graphic design. I was going to be a cartoonist. And then I did not enjoy the process of having my drawings critiqued. Like, I didn't like somebody coming over going, "You did not do this." I'm like, that's the inside of my head. You don't get to tell me if it was right or wrong. It's what I saw in my brain, and that's what I put there. But acting was much more of a collaborative, social, and I'm a social dude. So it was very social. It was, and I also was not an athletic kid, so it was a way to meet girls. And it was, it's like the reason dudes join a band in junior high, right? is to meet ladies. So, that was me in the 80s, was like, I'm going to take theater because, A, I get to stand there and have everybody look at me, and I was a attention hog. And, and I loved doing voices and characters and watching Saturday Night Live and all of that. And so about halfway through high school, I was doing leads in plays, and I was like, you know what? I think this is the direction the boat's sailing, so let's go to college for this. And I did, and then Second City, and then theater companies that I had, and then eventually that led to television and film work and brought me out to LA. So there's a
kind of whole mishmash of kind of like, it's interesting when you say about, so I think I'm just a couple of years older than you.
What year were you born?
66.
Yeah, just 2 years. Yeah, I was 68.
Yeah, which is really peeing me off a wee bit because you look about 10 years younger than me, which I'm not happy about because I'm, but anyway.
If all this was in, it's white.
Is it? Well, I mean, I've got.
So I shave that off and it's gone.
So I hate shaving.
Like right here, it's still a little dark. It's salt and peppery, but then this is all white. Yeah. You have the same. If you shaved off everything that wasn't dark, the illusion would be preserved. You froze on me there. There you go.
Yeah, you froze. I think we've had some sort of problems with the signal. So if I do freeze, it's not me going.
No worries.
No worries. So yeah, if I could bother to shave, I would do. So who were your inspirations then? I mean, was there like any particular?
Yeah, growing up, I wanted to be Bill Murray and Tom Hanks, and watching Bruce Willis do Moonlighting, and big influences were like David Letterman, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi. Like that's who I watched as a kid going, and those are the people that I would imitate and everything. And I wanted to be Han Solo. So it's like between the comedy and the genre stuff, like Star Wars and Star Trek and that, and Ghostbusters is sort of the perfect nexus of nerdiness and the Saturday Night Live sketch comedy of it all. And I was a Second City Chicago guy, so I sort of trod the same path of Bill Murray.
Yeah.
So those were the big influences on me as a kid. And then as I got older, you're looking at the Johnny Depps and the Daniel Day-Lewises and the Heath Ledgers and the Robert Downey Jr.'s, like those are the guys, and now like Idris Elba, like there's guys that I find kindred in, and for all different reasons, because I have just had such a strangely fractured career. Like half my career is spent doing half-hour sitcoms, and then the other half of the career I'm playing a tough guy, I'm killing people, I'm doing action stuff, and so there's always that nexus, right? Like, and so the projects that I get attracted to tend to exploit one or the other of those influences. And when I'm watching my own work, I'm like, yep, there's Tom Hanks. Yep, there's me stealing from Bill Murray. Yep, there's a little bit of Kevin Spacey back in the day, before things went sideways for that day. But I mean, so yeah, I had not soon enough, man.
I know, right? I know.
Not soon enough. Yeah. So yeah, those were the big ones that I look at. Vincent D'Onofrio. Those are the big ones. Josh Brolin has a fascinating career.
Brilliant, great. I mean,
Joaquin Phoenix has a fascinating career.
Yeah, I was watching The Goonies again for the first time in years the other day, and I thought, God, I forgot that Josh Brolin was in The Goonies. Of course he was. It's funny you mentioned that you wanted to be a Han Solo, because I wanted to be Boba Fett. And that's back then when he was only in the film for about.
He was so cool. Who would like Boba Fett? I cut out little things and mailed them away so that I could get my free Boba Fett figure from Kenner.
I made a terrible helmet at the time, because I would have been. So I saw it when it first came out, 77, wasn't it? So I'd been 10, 11. So pretty much same as you, and it was the most exciting thing that I'd ever.
It was a cultural event.
It was, and
there was life before Star Wars, and there was life after.
I know, and I said to my kids and people who get excited now. Yeah, it's great now, but there was nothing before that, nothing. And I made a Boba Fett. It was terrible, but I would just sit on the sofa, and if my dad spoke to me, I'd just nod. I would just nod. I'd do that thing, and they got sick of it, But it was.
This is before he had the Kiwi accent.
Yeah, before all that stuff. Yeah, it was so.
Leave Solo
cool.
for me. Yeah.
What about? Cause you do a lot of improv as well, don't you? I know you.
Well, that was my thing.
Yeah, and is it still something you do? And what is it that improv does for you as an actor? Does it help? Is it something different, or is it just the whole same thing?
It's all the same thing if the thing is a toolbox, right? Like a toolbox is a thing, and the toolbox is acting. The tools inside that toolbox, hammers, saws, measuring tape, those are all different items that you use to do the job. And so improv is one of the tools in the toolbox, but it's all part of the greater. I had a buddy, my friend said once, acting is just improvisation, but you happen to be saying what the writer wrote. And improv is just listening, having a thought, and reacting to what you took in, heightening the moment, digging deeper into the character. So I started out at Second City, Chicago, early 90s. I got out of college in 90, and I went and started tearing tickets and doing stuff at Second City in the suburbs of Chicago, and then moved that downtown and started studying with Del Close at Improv Olympic and doing all of that. And then I got hired to Second City as a performer, so I did that for about 5 years. And then I moved to New York, and I started a group with a bunch of amazing guys there called Burn Manhattan, and did that for 5 years. Then I moved to Los Angeles, and I opened a school for improvisation in 2002, and called the Hot House, and that ran for a number of years. And then I also have a group called The Doubtful Guests, which is sort of a Victorian ghost gothic horror version of an improv show. So, and that show has been running almost 20 years. We haven't done it in a few years, and obviously because of the pandemic, we pumped the brakes. But I always I love the experience and the exhilaration of stepping out onto a stage and having no idea what's going to happen, which is probably and right now that itch is being scratched by D&D, where it's improvised storytelling, with the dice are there to sort of keep you honest and guide things. But I think it's that unexpected, it's that community, it's that had to be there of it all. I tried stand-up when I was 19, and I did okay. I won a couple competitions, but it was lonely, and I liked doing scenes as opposed to just telling jokes. And I admire the art form of stand-up. It can be virtuosic. But I liked being part of the improv scene. It was a tribe in Chicago. The early 90s was this renaissance of improv in Chicago, and amazing performers, Colbert and Carell and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler all came out of that scene. Francis Callier all came out of that scene. I hope things go well for them.
Hey, whatever happened to that lot? I mean, disappeared without trace, man.
They've
only
only shaped modern comedy. I toured with Adam McKay. Like it was a great Susie Nakamura. It was just a great time to be part of an improv community. And then I took that and started experimenting with it with Burn Manhattan in New York, and we really pushed the art form into a new place and tried new things because I had tried all the stuff that I thought I could do. Chicago exhausted what I needed from it, and then I just wanted to go a whole other direction, and so we did Burn Manhattan, and that moved some needles, I think, a little bit, and I'm very proud of the work that I did. And those guys are still doing it in New York. They still are. They're still together. So yeah.
Am I right in saying that you did some? I don't know if it was improv, but you did some improv over here in Scotland. Have I got that
well,
right?
we took Second City to Edinburgh to the Fringe
Oh
Festival.
Man, wow! How did that go? How did you feel?
Well, it was an interesting thing because there's two things that are very key to my time in Scotland, and I have a great affection for Scotland. One of the things was a lot of the songs and jokes we didn't realize how American-centric they were, and we had a song that when sung in the States would poke ourselves in the eye, like it was intentionally, and the song was "We're the Last Superpower," and it was like a song about how we've got the bombs and blah blah, blah, and it was making fun of ourselves. It was like it was ridiculous, but we would sing that song, and it was done to like a Boys to Men song, "We're the last superpower," and it was like this 5-part harmony, and it was really beautiful, but all the audience is like, yeah, no, you're right, you are, that's not funny. Like it was like, oh, you know what, yeah, it's not funny here, that's not funny. So we had to tailor our act to where we were. The second thing that happened was I saw an amazing group called Rejects Revenge, and Anne Farrar and Tim Hibbard and David, they did a 3-person show. It was devised, but it was very European physical theater and clown.
Right, okay.
And it was this highly physical show, and so much of Second City is like, look, I'm miming a glass, maybe, and oh, look, I'm stirring it. But most of it is very heady, cerebral jokes. But these guys were so physical and so literary and so hilarious that I was just like, what are they doing? Because I'm a huge fan of like Bill Irwin and Chaplin and a lot of physical theater. And so I just sucker fished myself onto those guys, followed them around like a puppy looking for food, and just wanted to drink all of the information and became fast friends with those guys. I then just stole everything I could, went back, moved to New York, and that's the foundation for what Burn Manhattan became. What I watched in Rejects Revenge in Scotland, and that became my group in locking the doors. My boy is stepping off to work, so he's giving me the keys to the house. So I stole everything from them, and then, but I said, I want to take your scripted show and see how you can do an improvised version of that with all the physical work. Then, 8 years later, Rejects Revenge invited me to Liverpool to teach them how to do an improvised show based on their work. So I basically took all the stuff that we were doing with Burn Manhattan, and then Tim Hibbard from Rejects Revenge, when I was in New York, flew to New York to teach us workshops and stuff. So it has been this like amazing creative collaboration between Liverpool and New York. And then they also, so then I went and taught them the style that we had developed. They created a show called Hoof, which they then toured all over the UK. Then they brought Hoof, after I moved to LA, they went and brought Hoof to Los Angeles and did a run at my theater, the Hot House in Los Angeles. So, and it all started in Edinburgh.
I'm just trying to figure out who would get any money credits for anything. That's about as complicated as anything, So,
well, it's influences, right?
And
I will always credit them for the influence on the work and how much it shaped my worldview of improvisation and theater in general. And
I love the story. I love that sharing sort of between communities, and that kind of fluid, organic sort of thing comes from that. You mentioned a little while ago about when you watch yourself. Can you actually watch yourself back, say, on screen? 'Cause I've talked to a few actors who can't, who will just, even if it's just to critique themselves, can't do it. You can?
I don't care. There's so very little in this world that's like that bothers me. Like, I'm not self-conscious. There's moments where I'm more like, whoa, I could probably lose 15 pounds. But, but mostly, I know what I did on the day, and ideally it matched what I'm seeing. So I don't care. I'm often more curious to see what take they used.
Right.
Because, as sort of an improvisationally founded actor, I just like to keep sort of throwing choices and make it hard for the editor. And then let them pick what they want as the tone. But I have no hang up with seeing my own work.
You played quite a few, let's say one or two kind of intense individuals, sometimes bad guys, sometimes not. How do you cope with that in terms of the day? Can you switch off once you've done a scene and be happy and joking, or just stay in character through?
Yeah, I'm not a method person, and I cast no aspersions on somebody.
Yeah.
Who wants to kind of hang on to that. Acting is so much about the process of television and film is very much about resource management, because the days are 14 hours long.
Yeah.
So I would imagine having to stay in character for 14 hours would deplete me. And I have to come home and be a dad and a husband and a friend. So again, if someone's process is that's what they want to do is stay like between. Now, the caveat being, if I have to do a scene, and there's a couple scenes in that I've had to do on television, but mostly I'm there for the shits and grins. But there's been a couple scenes that I've had to do which are, very emotionally fragile. There's a scene in 12 Monkeys where it's very much like just raw and me facing things and facing demons in myself and whatnot, where I probably need a little space before we roll. And I'll put my headphones on and I'll listen to whatever music will get me in the right headspace, just so that I can, because look, if I don't bring it between action and cut, what are we even doing? Like, that's the time that I have to, like, so much else is everybody else's job. But then when they point their camera at me and they say, action, cut, like, that's the time I get to do my real job.
Yeah.
And if I don't bring it in those little times, it's like, well, then I've failed. I failed at the gig. By the way, it says Matilda Stashwick in my Zoom because my daughter does her Zoom classes through my Zoom account. So, but so, like, there are times where I go, well, if I know I have to be super fragile, super vulnerable, super emotional, if the waterworks have to happen, I'm not going to be a dick, but I am going to, like, just kind of go over here and kind of go internal a little bit, so that I can then go, all right, take the headphones off, get into the mark, get into the moment, and then when they say action, I'm there to do the job that I'm paid to do. Yeah.
You mentioned 12 Monkeys. Let's talk just would I be right in saying, would it be unfair to say that that's possibly what most people would talk to you about? Is, I mean, in terms of the
There's several things. Oddly, the one thing that I'm probably the longest known for is playing Dracula on Supernatural.
Supernatural, yeah.
Yeah, and then there was a show I was on with Eddie Izzard and Minnie Driver called The Riches, that had a very passionate fan base. And then, of course, 12 Monkeys is the most recent, and it was the longest gig that I had on one show. The Riches was cut down in its prime after a year and a half or a season and a half, and Supernatural was just the one episode. So yeah, so 12 Monkeys probably, because it's still like hot off the press.
Yeah, it's pretty recent, isn't it? Yeah. Were you familiar with? I mean, you were familiar obviously with the film.
Yeah.
Before. Just as a matter of interest, and this is just me because the film that preceded 12 Monkeys. Are you familiar with? Of course you are. It's one of my favourite sci-fi films ever, and I sometimes astounded how few people have actually seen it. And I've banged on about this for years, and I know it is good. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's a beautiful piece. I mean,
there's a bunch of nods to it in our show.
Yeah. But it's.
Who's the director of that?
Chris Marker.
Markridge.
Chris Marker.
Chris Marker. Yeah. Markridge is the studio, because that's the street that Terry Matalas grew up on. But there's a bunch of nods to La Jetée, and there's a bunch of nods to the Gilliam film as well.
Yes, yeah. So in terms of the role in the series, then, would I be right in saying that it initially would have been taken on just for a couple of guest roles, or was there a plan to expand the?
So I came on for technically 4 episodes, truthfully 2 episodes.
Okay.
Because I'm just sort of the tag on 2 episodes, but I got paid for a whole episode. So I'm the tag on 2 episodes, and then I show up for the whole episode preceding those. So yeah, I was just brought on as an antagonist, sort of to fill out the post-apocalyptic world, to be a bee in the bonnet of the facility, and I think to add a little, levity, a little bit, even though he was just a sociopath, just to add a little bit of je ne sais quoi.
He was a sociopath with a sense of humor.
He was a little winky. And then when I came back to shoot the season finale, I was having breakfast at the place that I was staying, and the showrunner and the co-creator Terry Matalas sat down and is like, I got so many ideas for Deacon for season 2. And I'm like, what? Well, okay, I'm listening. And he goes, yeah, he's like, I need to, if this show is going to have legs, it can't just be about Cole. We have to make it an ensemble. Yeah. And there are characters that we want to broaden and add. And Jennifer was just a guest star in season 1. And I believe Jones was not an official cast member of season 1. And so they were broadening out the cast. The show had done pretty good season 1.
Yeah.
And then, he goes, I see him as this sociopathic Han Solo, like, who begrudgingly has to join the team. And I'm like, well, you've read my dream journal. And so that's all I want to play is a sociopathic Han Solo. And he goes, I think it would be just such a great tone in the middle of all this, because he's not, the intensity of Ramsey and then the burden that Cole has to carry. There was room for this other voice in the dudes of the show, which was a wonderfully gender democratic show. There was room for this other voice, which was a bit more nihilistic, but then starting him here gave him such an opportunity for such an amazing arc. Because he was not a joiner, he was a leader. Yeah. He just wanted to be the boss. But so then I look at Terry while I'm eating my eggs, and I go, well, it's pilot season, so I can't guarantee, like, when I get back after the holidays, it's going to be like, I'm trying to get a regular job.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, and he immediately grabs his phone and he texts the casting directors and goes, make Todd Stashwick a series regular. Boop, and he sends it. I'm like, awesome. So I literally at this breakfast got the job for the next 4 years of my life. Yeah.
You stole my next question, because I was about to say what I really liked about your character in that was not just performance. I'm not just saying that because I loved it, but the arc. From being this kind of go from one to how it finished off. It was great, and
the
that
scoundrel,
yeah, the kind of scoundrel with a heart and all that stuff.
He's all soft on the inside, isn't he?
I know, right? Just cuddly, really. Just wants to cuddle. That's all. Besides killing people, and
he also gave Terry a conduit more than Jennifer, or also with Jennifer Goins to Terry, like myself, is a lover of pop culture.
Yeah.
And so it gave another chance to make pop culture references throughout the thing, like "Holy shit, it's Gozer" and stuff like that. We which was an improvised line on the day, which was really fun.
How easy was it to get you then to how should I say this without sounding a bit creepy, to show your bare butt, on screen? Because obviously, it was there.
Two things. In that scene. So they came to me and they said, look, we have this idea where Deacon's sort of at the very bottom of his nihilism and he just doesn't care anymore, and Cassie's rejected him and he's just going to go out with a bang. And so he's like, with the apocalypse approaching, I just saw a little thing. Okay. With the apocalypse approaching,
it's okay, I can hear you.
Okay, good. With the apocalypse approaching, he just doesn't care, and so we just want him just like to go out the way he came in, just naked. And then it's like, and then the script was like, and he's cleaning his gun. And I said to Terry, I said, wouldn't it be interesting if, because the first time we ever saw Deacon, he was sharpening a knife, and what if he was sharpening his knife, the same knife that cut Cole and put the stuff in him? What if he was sharpening his knife? Because I'm like, where you sharpen a knife if you're naked is like the worst part for a dude to be sharpening a knife near, and that's just funny to me. And then I said he should also be singing, like, and he's like, what should he be singing? And we're like, I don't know, like just banging around ideas. And then Terry goes, Universal owns the song "Don't You Forget About Me." And then we were both like, and that's kind of a great song, like at the end of the world, like when the world is coming to an end. Don't you forget about me. And so we were like, let's do it. And he was kind of the bender of the group, sort of the ne'er-do-well of the group. So it fit beautifully, and then it just thematically was used so amazingly through the rest of the show, to the point where in the season finale I get chills at that moment. It blows me away. But
it's a great series, honest to God. It's so well done. It's so well done.
In answer to your question about being naked, I don't care, because nobody is like looking at me going, ooh la la, let's see Stashwick naked. Like, that's not kind of like Julia Roberts goes, nobody ever wants to see my boobs. Like, nobody's going, ooh, let's get Julia naked. Like, to put me naked in a show is going to be for comedic purposes. So then we get to season 3, and then Terry calls me up and he's like, you got to get ripped. I said, what? He goes, yeah, you got to get ripped. I'm like, I'm 48 years old. When am I getting ripped? And he goes, well, we're doing a whole thing with, and I don't want to spoil it for people, but Deacon is going to go through a massive change over a course of a few months in the show, and you're going to basically be shirtless, and you need to look very like prison yard hard. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, how much time do I have? So I hired a nutritionist, I hired a trainer, I pushed the bourbon and the pizza to the side, and I dove hard, and so I was very happy with the results. It was a lot of work. It was really cool to do, and then I also, my trainer, my trainers then turned out to be my shepherds back to Dungeons and Dragons, because
one
of my dearest friends and DMs. And him and his wife run a gym in LA called Hero's Journey Fitness, and they do nerdy themed.
Oh man, that sounds
workouts. Cool. And I just worked out this morning, and it was a Gorilla Grodd workout.
Before I ask you about the nerd stuff and the D&D stuff, which is it's so like close to my heart at the moment. That T-shirt, I did a bit of research, and I read. Now, obviously, this is true that you are a big Styx fan, obviously, and I'm not. Oh wow!
Come sail away.
You know how I'm assuming you and your lady wife have your songs and stuff. One of mine and my wife's songs is "Babe." Honestly, and I know, right? And I know it's a cliche, but when we were first seeing each other back in the late 80s, that was one of our favorite songs. And we're both. I mean, I was into the goth music, I was into rock and all the punk.
Sure.
But if you nail me down, the kind of like AOR stuff from the 8 Journey, Boston.
The arena rock, Prague arena rock.
Yeah, I mean, what do they call it these days now? Yacht rock or something, which I don't know.
Well, that's arena rock. Like Journey, that's arena rock.
Yeah, but Styx, man, such a...
Yeah, for me, was there a specific question, or we just?
I'm just talking about Styx, man. I'm just talking about Styx. Go talk about Styx.
So, so when I was in elementary school, heading into junior high. This was like 79, right? And so when I was like purchasing vinyl, that's what I was purchasing, was Kansas and Styx and that.
Yeah.
So it looms in a very specific, innocent part of my life. Now, it also coincided with my playing of Dungeons and Dragons at the time, in 79 to 80, and then like 79, 80, and 81 were my big D&D years as a kid, and listening to a lot of Styx. Like my cousin and I started the D&D club in our junior high, and we put on like Castle Walls, like, and we're like, you're walking down a path, and you see 2 skeletons jump out. They're bearing swords. What do? Well, you'll find out at 3 p.m. in the library as you join the Dungeons and Dragons Club. And so Styx was like the theme song to my life in D&D. And I've said this before in interviews, the song Come Sail Away, first of all the imagery was always like very D&D. It's like pirates, and we're getting on a ship, and we're going on a journey, and it's mystical, and then the mystical, all of that synth music. But they thought they were angels, but much to their surprise, they climbed aboard a starship and headed for the sky. Like, I was like, what is happening? I did not know how to process the idea that these angels also, wait, no, they're aliens. This is the best song ever written.
It's funny you should say that, because we've got a very similar trajectory, apart from the acting, the fame, and everything else. Apart from that, because I had a very similar experience with a friend of mine. She got me into D&D probably about 83, 84. And we had an album that played all the time, but it was Marillion's Misplaced Childhood. So whenever I think
it all fits in that pocket, doesn't it?
It's there. It's just that.
It all fits in that pocket. I have so with the Nerd Circus, if anybody's on Spotify, and I'll tweet this out after. I have a Spotify playlist that you can boop,
right?
And it's on my Nerd Circus business card, and it's all of that late 70s, just that. So it's like Styx, Kansas, Bob Seger. It's as I say, it's like it's wood paneling and orange shag rugs, like. It's that, and that's where D&D lives in my soul. Yeah. And when I came back to the game, it was only natural that that's the soundtrack to it. And I stopped playing in '83 because of the Satanic Panic.
I mean, that was a thing, wasn't it? I mean,
huge.
I remember it being a thing. here in the UK, I really don't think it was as much. The reason I stopped playing is because, well, I kind of didn't play. I kind of flirted with it at the time. It was more of a girl thing, to be honest. There was a girl I was interested, and so I flirted with it. But I mean, back then, being a nerd or into D&D or Star Wars wasn't cool like it is now. I mean, now it is.
No, it's now. It was the subculture. It's now the culture.
Yeah, but also as well, I do remember the Satanic Backlash, and I think it was more of the States than. So, why did you come back to it then? What was? The
okay, so I was a very impressionable kid who would go to vacation Bible camp and I was a Midwest Lutheran boy. It wasn't like weird evangelical stuff. It was just this thing that we would I was part of the youth groups and whatnot, and it was a wonderful way to spend my childhood. And one of my friends who I still play D&D with was part of those groups and whatnot. But I went to a camp, and this was right around, I think I was 13. Yeah, so I was 13. I went away to a camp, and they were like, no, D&D is a gateway to the devil. Look at all the iconography. Look at that. And I was just like, it is! I was 13. So I was like, what are you talking about? I came back that summer, and my dad had built me this lovely box that I kept all my stuff in, my dice and my books, and I just got rid of it. I am done with Dungeons and Dragons because I'm terrified of it. I thought it was going to be this weird mind control thing that it's subliminally pushing me into the arms of the Dark Lord. Now, so 100 years later, I realized that was a ridiculous point of view, and so about. I want to say maybe 10 to 12 years ago. I was at an audition, and you just chit-chat with a lot of the actors when you're at an audition. And Abraham Ben Ruby, lovely actor, Abraham Ben Ruby, and I just recently alerted him to the fact that he was the one who lit the fuse. So Abraham Ben Ruby was talking about his D&D game last night, and I was like, what? Wait, what? Because I had already gotten over all of it, but I just had it was not even on my radar anymore. Literally from 1983 till about 10 years ago, it wasn't on my radar anymore. And I'm like, what? You're what? You're playing Dungeons and Dungeons and Dragons, 1979, 1980. You're playing that grown-up person.
Yeah.
And I was 42, and I'm like, and he's like, yeah, me and Matthew Lillard and a bunch of people, we play D&D, and I'm like, that's a thing. Wait, you can do that as a grown-up person? So then I went home, and I just was like, well, now I'm a grown-up person. So I went on eBay, and I bought all my original Player's Handbook back. I wish they were my original, but I bought an original Player's Handbook and a Dungeon Master's Guide, and just to go, I don't have people to play with, but I just want to hold these things again. And it lived in a very pure, innocent part of my youth, and it was a wonderful thing that I fell away from. So I'm buying all these books back just to have them, just to look through them and smell them and look at all the Trampier and all of the artists in there. And that was it.
Yeah.
Then around 2014, is when 5e came out, and I'm like, that's it. I want to play D&D again. and I put that out on Facebook, and then my buddy Yuri Lowenthal, who's a ridiculously successful voiceover actor, and he's Peter Parker in the new Spider-Man games.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So Yuri, not an hour later, shows up at my house holding the starter kit. He's like, me too. I want to play. So he gives it to me. He's like, happy birthday. We're going to start playing D&D. I'm like, yes, we are. And then I booked 12 Monkeys and left town. So guess we're not starting it now. So then I went into training for 12 Monkeys. This is now 2016.
Yeah.
Still haven't been able to play because I haven't been home consistently to play D&D, and nobody was really playing it on Zoom or anything.
Yeah.
And but I brought the books with me now. I brought the starter kit, and I'm reading and everything. And then David Netzad, who is my Sherpa, who led me back to the Satanic Abundance. So David Nett says, you know what? let's get a group together. When you're done with 12 Monkeys, let's get a group together and let's play D&D.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So then I went through the whole year. Now it's now 2017, and it's the end of 12 Monkeys has come to its end. And then rolled up a character in 2017, went home for Christmas, came back, and I've been playing the same game since then. We've been the same group since then, the same campaign for going on 4 years.
Well, I mean, I'm even more of a noob coming back to it, except I'm only in the last few months.
Oh, welcome back.
So yeah, I know, man. It was a friend of mine at work in my day job said, let's do. You're a nerd. Let's do D&D. So he's the DM. He's played it before. Got a couple of other guys in the group who haven't played it at all. You know, so we've got a mixture of the black table. We are the black. In fact, look, I've got my dice here, and
nice.
oh man, and. We're kind of like, we haven't done the proper campaign yet because we're kind of building up to it. We're doing a bit of training, we're doing some workshops. But all I've been doing for the last 2 months is creating character after character after. I'm a drow. My main one's a drow. I'm a drow ranger. But I've got all the, and just going through the book and just rolling the dice, looking at my skills, looking at my. Honest to God, it's so enjoyable. You know, and my wife looks at me and goes, "What are you doing?" I goes, I'm making another character. I'm making another character. She goes, "What's this one?" You know, and she kind of puts up with it. You know, she kind of like humors it.
Well, I finally got my wife to sit down at the table with me, and she's like, "All right, I get it. Let's play." So I'm going to be starting. So then what happened was I started playing with my buddy and my daughter, who at the time was. She was like 10 or 11. She's like, "What are you doing, Dad?" Like, "I'm playing D&D." And she's like, "Let me see that book." And I hand it to her, and she's just like, "Oh my God." And like tieflings and monster manual. And she's like, "Oh my God, you have to teach me." So I bust out the starter kit and I start her on Fandelver and a bunch of other 10, 11-year-olds, get them around the table, the age I was when I started. And that's how I started DMing again.
Yeah.
And out of necessity, because my daughter wanted me to run a game. And then that led to me doing one-shots once a month where I just get random people, some people like who've never played and some old-timers, and I would write it. Or at first I was doing pre-written stories by this guy, Sly Flourish, who does these amazing one-shots, just so I could just get inside of it without worrying about the mechanics, just how do I run a game, how do I do combat, how do I do all that. And then I would slowly start to season in my own ideas into his work. And then it's like, all right, now I'm just going to write my own. And it's been one-shots. And then I was invited during the pandemic to join Jasper's Game and run stuff online. There was a show called The Dungeon Run that they invited me to DM. And then tonight I actually have a game where I'm a player at the table. You froze. There you are.
Oh, sorry. I'm back.
I'm a player at the table that my buddy David Blue is running for Jasper's Game.
Yeah.
And Christina Ochoa, Critical Bard, and Anthony Rapp are all playing at that table. And then I have yet to write and start my own ongoing where the people stay with me week after week or month after month. And that I'm going to start in June, and I have got a great table for that. So I play probably 4 times a month.
It takes over your life, doesn't it? I mean, I'm just saying, just a few months, and it's just consumed me. I know. I mean, I was going to show you some of my this kind of secret stuff that we're not allowed to share with anybody yet because I haven't told the rest of my group yet about my own thing. Why do you think it's become such a big thing? You know, why is it so popular now? What is it? The pandemic that's kind of brought it.
Well, I think that helped. I also think at first before the pandemic, because it didn't just sort of.
It's been a few years before that, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't drop out of nowhere. I think it was in response to screen culture.
Yeah.
And video games. I think people they love the escape and the fantasy of it all. Which is why they play video games. But we were gathering around a table now and sharing a laugh and sharing pizza and having a drink and talking shop and then creating a story that you walk away from. And it's a great way to organize an evening. It's a great experience that isn't just people sitting around having a drink. Like it's very social, it's very escapist, it's exciting and invested, but I think it was an alternative to video games. I think it was in response to, we're all just on headsets and we're talking on mics and we don't even see the people that we're playing with because we see some digital avatar. And I think it grew out of that. Plus, I think 5e, they did some really smart things where they boiled everything down. I'm going to take out one of Joe's. They boiled pretty much a lot of the mechanics down to the iconographic D20. They streamlined certain things, so that's your gateway into everything.
Yeah.
And then they also made it harder for your characters to die. And I think people really like creating a character like you're showing, and then they get attached to it. And so the 5e is much more forgiving, so you get to live with your character a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent so much time invested in mine, which I haven't played it. It's. I mean, I'm not an actor. I'm kind of that make-believe world for me was always kind of more something that I took like secondhand from books and so forth. But for this, it's almost like living this character at times that I've created. And if it died, I'd be devastated.
I'm actually looking forward to when my character dies. I've been playing him for 4 years, and so it'll be an interesting thing to be able to put an end to go, and this is how he went out. I think it'll be interesting. I will not have I don't have that sort of remorse where I'll flip the table when he dies. I know when he goes, he's going out in a blaze of glory. It's not going to be choking on a chicken bone. It's going to be something spectacular, and it'll be great story. Weirdly, the most controversial tweet I've ever put out that got the most actuallys was I tweeted out D&D truth, bad rolls equal great story.
Oh, I saw this. Yeah, you got some back chat with that, man. Yeah.
And then people were like, no, that's actually not in the rule set. No, that's actually more of a DM choice. There's nothing in D&D that says that. And I'm like, well, truth be told, you look at page 242 of the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a whole thing on how to handle bad rolls. Anyway, but that's just, in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Don't worry about that. But, so yes, it is in the... Anyway, but D&D is all about what the DM and the players do as far as the storytelling. Otherwise, it's your math versus my math, and there's no fun in that. It literally is about embellishment. That's what the game is. Yeah. It's not a game that you win because of good rolls. There's no winning in D&D. It's not a game you win. It's a game you play. Yeah. It's not like you're playing it to end it. It's not Monopoly. It is all about upturns and downturns, and that's what makes great story is upturns and downturns. Otherwise, I actually said, otherwise it would be Frodo gets the ring, throws it in the volcano.
All done.
All done. And nothing happened. It is the bad rolls that shape it. It is going into death saves that make you care about coming out of them.
I did have to laugh when I did see that. I do remember because, Twitter's a weird place anyway. I mean, what's the old adage? How do you cause an argument on Twitter? State an opinion and wait 10 seconds. And
my favorite is there's this cartoon. It's like the wife going, come to bed. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. He goes, no, someone is wrong on the internet.
I think it was it Ricky Gervais that said, when you see something on Twitter, you don't have to fucking comment on it. You don't have to, you can disagree. Listen, I've taken up a lot of your time out, and there's so much I still want to ask. Tell me about a couple of things.
Yep.
Tell me about, the Devil Inside webcomic. I wanted to talk about that, but I don't know if I'll have, where did that start and where's it going? Because I've read it's web-based. Is it available on print as well?
The first 3 books, actually, I'm sold out of the 3. The first 2 books are available on my Nerd Circus. You can read it for free online at devilinsidecomic.com.
Which I did.
It started because I met Dennis Calero, who is a comic book artist, and he's a writer in his own right. And we met because he was doing the art for Heroes. I was at a show called Heroes, and he had drawn my character, and I was like, "That's awesome! I'm a comic book guy, so I want to see what this guy's doing." And then he was a fan of the show The Riches that I was on, and so we met. And he's like, "Do you have any ideas?" And I said, "Yeah, I got this idea about the devil going on the lam, sort of like an FX show where he just sort of goes on the run in the desert." And then he's like, "Let's do a webcomic." And so I wrote it and he drew it and we put it out. And he goes, "We're going to put it out for free once a week." And we put it out for free once a week. And then he says, after it had been out for a year, we were like, "Let's collect it up. Let's put them in a book and print it, and we'll take it to Comic-Con."
Yeah.
And we had taken it the year before to Comic-Con, and we just had a postcard and one strip up with a promise, "Yeah, we'll have more." And then Universal optioned it to possibly try and make a TV show out of it, which led to another script that we wrote, a space script that we wrote. And so it became sort of a key into a lock into a world of writing for me.
Yeah.
And it was and it took me a lot of places. Like, it took me to Comic-Con for 6 years. It's an amazing piece, and it's ongoing. I mean, thank goodness during the pandemic, my actual writing career has been flourishing. I've been writing a lot of interactive and video game stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but it's all because I decided to collaborate with this amazing artist and make something and put it online.
I've read the first one, and I've got the other two. I'm going to finish in the next few days. And I've really enjoyed it, and I love the concept, and it's beautifully drawn. The story is
great.
You know,
it's about how evil is a choice. It's not a force. It's like no one's born. Obviously, there's aberrations in nature where people are sociopaths or whatnot, but for the most part, you have from moment to moment, you have the choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and so this is like just the metaphor. Then is the most evil being in the universe one day decides to go, "I don't want to do that anymore. I want to maybe choose to do the right thing." And what does that mean? And how do you rewrite your story going forward? And that's where it came from, and we all struggle with those moments. So that led to that, and then the internet is how I met Dennis Calero. The internet is how I met Brandon Cleely, who was an Imagineer, who created Trader Sam's, and he has his own amazing website, Trader Sam's, and I introduced Dungeons and Dragons to him, and then he and I collaborated on a Tiki. He knows all about Tiki. I knew about D&D, and we made a Tiki cocktail book inspired by. I
wanted to ask you about this. When's that coming out? Because the Kickstarter met its target and was like
Kickstarter. Well, I just found out that next week they're going to be put on a boat and heading our way. So they should be available later in the summer. We're going to get them out to the. We're going to get them out to the Kickstarter folks first. And then they will be available on my website and his website. Or if a local game shop wants to order a bunch, let us know. Oh. So they're for sale on my and it's a cool I've seen the book. It's gorgeous. There's NPCs in it. There is a new playable subclass for bards in it. There's an entire one shot at the back that you can play, and then in between there are short stories that set up the chapters, and then the chapters are all cocktail recipes.
I like the cocktail. I like everything else, but I like the cocktail recipes as well. I may have to get a copy. I may have to. Yeah.
Well, so go to thenerdcircus.com and you can get a copy of it once they're available. Well, and that started because I wanted to sell nerdy D&D stuff that reminded me of the 70s.
I was about to ask about that. I mean, the Nerd Circus is I mean, the glasses on there are great, and you've got like T-shirts, you've got dice and all this stuff. Nice.
This is my wood panel orange shag rug dice box. There's an orange shag rug carpet in there. And it's got my little phrase, which is, "May you always roll with advantage." And then I have lava lamp inspired dice.
Oh man,
it's like a lava lamp.
Oh man.
And then when we were growing up in the 80s, our dice boxes were cigar boxes that our dads, that we fished out of the garbage from our dad. And so I wanted this to be the shape and size of a cigar box.
Cool.
But to also look like you're rolling in a basement from the 70s, which is a brown wood paneling and orange shag carpet. But yeah, so I sell dice because I just wanted to kind of, and the sort of the color of the Crown Royal bags, which is what we all kept our D&D dice in. Yeah. And then I don't know if you remember the old Burger King glasses.
Yeah.
So I wanted my Mai Tai glasses to have the feel of those old collectible Burger King glasses. And I've got 15 sets of these left, and then I'm ordering a whole new run with a different color set. That'll be coming out around the same time as the book.
I can't wait to see
that. So that's the Nerd Circus. It just became a project that I wanted to do during the pandemic, where I wanted to sort of share my nerdy passions. And there's 12 Monkeys inspired T-shirts and D&D inspired T-shirts and Supernatural inspired T-shirts. And just a lot of just silliness and fun.
I'll make sure that I put all the links on the piece when I put this together in the next couple of days, because, and I am genuinely not just saying this, but the Nerd Circus the stuff on there looks great. The comic looks great. You were recently a stretch goal.
That's on Satine's book.
Satine's, yeah.
So Satine has done an amazing. I mean, that woman.
Honest to God,
she's a dynamo.
The Battle of the Bows. I was watching some of her stuff on Twitch last night that she was doing, and that was awesome. And she's got a presence about her, but she knows.
Oh my gosh,
she's really good. So, how did it feel to be a stretch goal? Did it meet the target? I think it did, didn't it? Did it?
Yeah, it did. So we're already on to David Blue's stretch goal. Satine, I met Satine. Well, I had briefly met her at Joe Manganiello, who does death saves. And if you want some like really cool sort of heavy metal inspired D&D stuff, go to Death Saves. Okay. And that's Joe Manganiello's site. And he's a big nerd, even though you wouldn't know it looking at him. He's literally a big nerd. So he was having a launch party for one of his, I think it was for the Frazetta Girls run of products that Death Saves was doing. And I met Satine there, but it was so in passing. But then she and I did a panel about role-playing and mental health. And health, period. And so I was on that for because I, with the gym that my buddy David runs, I'm an active member there. So I was talking about that. And so she and I met there, and we hit it off, became fast friends. And then she invited me over to her house to play test one of the new the Icewind Dale game.
Right.
And then I had her at my table here in my nerd lair, and we just became close, and as with a shared passion for D&D and storytelling. And then when we were creating Mystic Libations, since it is a marriage of kind of themed entertainment and D&D, Satine wrote the foreword, and then an Imagineer that Brandon knows wrote the preface. And then when she's doing her book, she's like, I want you to create an NPC for the book and a location and a magical item. And so I was like, of course. And then I went onto her show Sirens and played an NPC character and guested on her show Sirens. And so she reached that stretch goal, and now I got to get to typing.
No pressure, no pressure for that.
Look, I've been writing one shots for the last 3.5 years.
Yeah,
it's not hard to create an NPC. It's hard to craft a good, engaging one, because that's all the stuff that you do before you get to the typing. But when you get to the typing, that's easy.
Yeah. I hope to speak to Satine soon, because I messaged you the other day after I messaged you. And she messaged back saying, let's do something. So I've emailed, and we're going to hopefully chat with her soon. But
because she's still got a couple of weeks left on her Kickstarter.
I think
I'm sure she'd love to chat with you about it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, as I say, she's great. Honestly, so good.
Yeah.
Listen, I've taken a lot of your time. I've really enjoyed this.
That's fine.
We're just talk D&D, if nothing else. What's the future for yourself then? I mean, obviously we've got the pandemic. Hopefully, I don't know. kind of.
Well, I just recently got back to a set and did a couple episodes of 911 Lone Star with Rob Lowe, and the second one will air Monday.
Okay.
And then I have a lot of writing projects currently. I've been working with Skydance New Media and writing for them, and then I worked on another video game that'll hopefully be coming out next year. I'm pretty confident that I can't talk about. Okay. And then we've got Mystic Libations coming out, and then I'm going to add new stuff to the Nerd Circus, and then I've got a couple screenplays that have some interest that I'm writing, and then I'm out there auditioning, for television and film. So
nothing too much. Just
I'm playing a lot more D&D. Like I said, tonight, 4 p.m. Pacific, I'm sitting at the table that David Blue is running, and then I'm taking my 79-year-old mother. I'm flying back to Chicago. I'm vaccinated, so I'm flying back to Chicago, getting on an airplane for the first time in a year and a half.
Wow!
And I'm gonna play D&D with her. So I'm pretty excited.
Playing D&D with your mom. I mean, what could be finer?
I can't wait. My mom is really good with math, so I think she's gonna grok the mechanics really quickly, and then just have a blast with all the other stuff.
Oh man, that sounds so cool. Listen, mate, appreciate your time. Thanks for the talk. It's been great, honest to God. It's been so good.
So much fun. Great nerding out with you, buddy.
And hopefully we'll keep in touch, and hopefully I won't bore you too much with the stuff I upload to Twitter and stuff, and maybe we'll have a Twitter spat someday. That'll be fun.
I'm sure I'll offend somebody somewhere. That might be you.
All right. You stay cool, bud. All right, man.
All right.
You take care. All right. Peace, brother. Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get yourself ready for an interdimensional sensory experience. Welcome all to the dimension of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. This is the 5D Podcast.